So it's 09:45 military time. We're going to go ahead and get started with this session over here. My name is Mike Black. I'm the Vice President for Defense at AFC International, and I'm honored to provide a brief introduction to our session here. It's my pleasure to introduce this morning's session, Poseidon, Corollary in the Indo-Pacific. And our speaker this morning is Rear Admiral Jeffrey Kilian, United States Navy, and the Commander of Naval Facilities Engineering Systems Command, Pacific. Admiral Kilian is a 1994 graduate of San Diego State University, and he holds a master's in engineering, construction, and project management from the University of Texas at Austin. And he completed the advanced management program at Duke University. Prior to joining the Navy, he served for 4 years in the Marines, assigned to the 1st Marine Division, 1st Marine Expeditionary Force, or MEF. Admiral Kilian previously commanded Naval Construction Battalion 4 and the 30th Naval Construction Regiment and NAVFAC Europe, Africa Central. Please join me in a warm welcome to Admiral Jeffrey Kilian. Sir.
All right, good morning, everybody. Assuming everyone can hear me here. So my name's Rear Admiral Jeff Kilian. I am both the NAVFAC Pacific Commander. I'm also the PACFLT Engineer. So I serve on the PACFLT staff as an advisor to the Commander on all issues related to infrastructure and shore engineering. So I work in both capacities. Today I'm going to talk about a framework that we have developed to think, act, and operate differently. It's very important when you look at the equities that I'm responsible for the Navy in the Pacific, infrastructure, ashore, in remote locations and in established bases, but shore infrastructure, development, maintenance, and construction regardless. I'm going to talk about this framework that I have titled the Poseidon's Corollary. As we all know, Poseidon is the Greek god of the sea, was the protector of seafarers and guardian of coastal cities and colonies. And Poseidon carries a three-pronged trident. Just like the trident had 3 prongs, I see contingency and expeditionary engineering having 3 separate but related components. Those are NAVFAC SYSCOM's technical capabilities and contract authorities, the Navy Seabee Naval Construction Force, and our nation's very best civil engineers, construction companies, and through industry. Let's go to next slide, please. So within CNO's 2024 navigation plan, Admiral Franchetti focuses on 2 strategic ends: readiness for conflict with the PRC by 2027 and enhancing our long-term advantage. We'll achieve these ends by expanding the Navy's contribution to the joint warfighting ecosystem and implementing the 7 Project 33 targets. While NAVFAC plays a supporting role in all 7 targets, the target titled Restore Our Critical Infrastructure is a direct call to arms for NAVFAC as a systems command. We all know the Navy's infrastructure is aging, and through a number of investments and synergies within our approach to construction, we are postured to answer the call and deliver facilities necessary to enable operational readiness in the Pacific. So this small niche portion of the Navy's mission in the Pacific is an enabler for the larger section of the Navy's mission, and NAVFAC is ready to support that. Let's go to the next slide, please. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Poseidon's Corollary here for the next few slides. But recently we had our commander, PACFLT Commander Admiral Kaler. We briefed him on this framework, and his words were simply, this is an operational imperative for PACFLT to execute its mission. As I mentioned, Poseidon's Corollary is a framework to execute posture requirements in the Indo-Pacific region. And when I think of posture, I look at it in 3 different dimensions. One is forces. I think that's kind of obvious. You're going to posture forces. Agreements, particularly if we're posturing those forces in locations that are not U.S. territories or such, or protectorates. And lastly, the third dimension is footprint. Infrastructure supports the footprint necessary to enable forces to execute their mission, plain and simple. Whether it's with the warfighting platforms we have today or those that we will develop and field in the future. Infrastructure is always going to be the enabling factor. The reality is ships go to sea, they fight at sea, but they have to come back for provisioning and other maintenance requirements. NAVFAC is a systems command, for those of you who are not familiar with it, is a systems command and provides the following capabilities: design and construction, maintenance and facility operations, expeditionary engineering and logistics, environmental compliance, real estate, and legal support. The operational force, the Naval Construction Force, or the Seabees as we call them, provide fleet construction support, tactical command and control of operational forces ashore, construction management in an expeditionary setting, and a wide-ranging spectrum of support to the United States Marine Corps, particularly in heavy and technical construction. Our contractors are our third component on Trident's staff, and that's industry. I will refer to them as contractors. They provide a variety of support to the Navy through material procurement and life services, heavy lift and inter-island logistics, emerging technology integration, first and foremost, or last I should say, most importantly, complex design and construction of our ever-changing requirements. Let's go to the next slide, please. So why Poseidon? Why do we develop this framework, a vision, if you will, or a CONOPS for the execution of the construction mission? Well, first let me declare up front, it's not original thinking. This is what we did in World War II. We did it in the South Pacific initially, in New Guinea, Guadalcanal, and then we carried it on throughout our effort all the way up into Iwo Jima and Okinawa. During World War II, there were 325,000 Seabees tasked with building airfields, ports, making roads, and runways to support the war effort. Over our history, the number of Seabees have ebbed and flowed, ramping up in times of war and shrinking in peacetime, as you would expect. Today, we have just under 7,000 Seabees, compared to a World War II high in 1944 of 325,000. Simply put, this is the takeaway message for my industry partners here. Simply put, we do not have the number of military personnel required to carry out the infrastructure investment in the Pacific, and I need industry. I need industry there, front and center. I mentioned the Poseidon's corollary. Those are my words, but it's not original thinking. This approach was applied, this proof of concept was proven during Vietnam with the creation of Officer in Charge of Construction Vietnam, headquartered in that country at that time, where they executed myriad projects, including the first ever cost-plus major construction effort. The quote at the bottom of the page from General MacArthur, and it says it all: the only trouble with the Seabees is I don't have enough of them, and that's never been more true today. But I have levers using industry to allow me, or that will enable me to access construction capacity. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so let's talk about the first component. NAVFAC is a systems command. For those of you familiar with the organization of the United States Navy, you know it's essentially three buckets. You have your fleets, which are your operational forces. You have your type commanders who generate the forces. And then you have your systems commands that retain special authorities to execute acquisition and other technical aspects of supporting the Navy. Those authorities are unique to those systems commands. In the Pacific, NAVFAC employs of 10,000, I have 10,000 folks that work for me, and we're composed of 7 Echelon 4 commands, 23 public works departments, 2 resident officers in charge of construction, 11 facilities engineering and acquisition divisions, and 2 officers in charge of construction. We recently closed or decommissioned our one of them, our third one, and that was at China Lake with the as we ramp down the program effort there. The officers in charge of construction are responsible for executing specific programs, unlike other field offices that execute a variety of programs. In 2024, our portfolio was valued at $5.5 billion in execution, and NAVFAC provides the full suite of engineering capabilities to include environmental real estate planning, in addition to contracts, myriad contracts, design and construction execution. As the bumper sticker says at the bottom of the slide, NAVFAC is the engineering link between the shore and the fleet within the Indo-Pacific region. Let's go to the next slide, please. So I have a few examples here of NAVFAC and Poseidon's Corollary. Wake Island, of course, is important historically. It was the Battle of Wake Island where the decision was made to create a uniformed naval construction force. The contractors that were, the contracted personnel that were executing construction on Wake Island prior to the attack were civilians, and they were quickly wrapped into defense of the island with the Marine Corps. And so after that, the Navy made the decision, we're going to create uniformed personnel to do the construction, many of which came directly from the construction industry, by the way. But so why does Wake Island matter today? Because we're going back. We're going to be executing a significant workload in Wake Island over the next few years, and we will be returning, if you want to say, to our roots. The top right picture, these are some examples that I have here. The top right photo is a warehouse and maintenance facility in the Philippines. It was completed last year. We execute a large number of projects and plan to execute a large number of projects in the Philippines on behalf of Indo-Pacific Command. The bottom right is a photo of our NAVFAC Expeditionary Warfare Center personnel. The Expeditionary Warfare Center is NAVFAC's only warfare center and the only warfare center in the Navy that is dedicated to shore infrastructure and expeditionary engineering, RDT&E, and experimentation. That command is comprised of engineers, scientists, various analysts, logisticians, contract specialists, and other professionals that provide technology and unique agile solutions for the warfighter that specifically focus on the expeditionary environment, oceans, and shore needs from established bases to what we would like to call expeditionary locations or places. The bottom left is a facility-related control systems graphic. NAVFAC is charged with cybersecurity as it relates to infrastructure and facility-related controls. We're actively in the process now of hardening these systems and ensuring that critical infrastructure remains resilient to any threat. Next slide, please. Okay, let's talk about leg 2, the Seabees. So broadly speaking, 2025 is an inflection point and opportunity at every level to redefine where and how we operate in the Pacific. And this starts at PACFLT, with established coordination across our staff, sister services, and the combatant commander, Indo-PACOM, to align requirements, pushing clear orders to the operational force and units of action within our chain of command. So I want you to hold the thought. We'll come back at the end. I'll go off script and provide a little more extemporaneous discussion. But this is a key part, particularly for our industry partners, because we may ask you, or we may offer you opportunities, business opportunities, to take contracts where you work directly with Naval Construction Force personnel, either in a logistics capacity or in a actual execution capacity. Within that framework, we've established a structured governance process to support senior level communication, planning, and responsive execution. As you can imagine, the induction of work from the Joint Force is complicated. There are so many external factors that affect our ability to execute in a timely manner. So we've spent a lot of time investing in that management governance process. We've also developed for the Seabees in FY25 I hate to say the first ever, but it's the first in probably multiple decades, 3 to 4 decades, a concept of operations that outlines for the Navy what the Seabees can and will accomplish for not only our naval forces, to include the Navy and the Marine Corps, but the Joint Force writ large. So we have to be pragmatic and deliberate where we are sending our Seabees, and how does that mesh with our industry partners. In FY25, we will deploy all Seabees in the United States Navy to the Pacific, every one of them. So that is in motion now. And to support this increase, I have asked the NAVFAC Facilities Engineering Commands, the Echelon 4 commands that many of you work with, to be ready to support their infrastructure requirements as related to PDI, the Pacific Deterrence Initiative, for the Naval Construction Force. Simply put, I see this as a way to buy down financial risk. So from a business perspective, within the Navy, we can buy down financial risk with leveraging our uniformed force. So this slide simply is an operational view of the Naval Construction Force's general construction capabilities. I would just say these words: the Seabees are the uniformed expeditionary construction element capable of executing horizontal, vertical, and underwater construction in the Pacific. Slide 7, please. Just a few examples of work that they're doing now. So we've got Seabees building Expeditionary Forward Operating Base. That one is in Tinian. Top right, Seabees are working on port damage repair. This includes pile replacement, waterfront marine construction, and utilities. Bottom right are Seabees in Antarctica, where they're currently on mission with the National Science Foundation, building a pier for the NSF. And then bottom left are Seabees doing kind of their standard thing there with concrete placement. Next slide, please. So I've got a few more photos here that demonstrate what these folks are up to. You'll see the upper left-hand corner. We're working with allies and partners on a variety of construction projects. This photo in particular is with Japan, their self-defense force. Top right are Seabees working on a port damage repair effort. Top right is Peleliu, which is in Palau. And here you can see our equipment operators are doing vertical construction, grading, aggregate, etc. for road maintenance. Bottom left, you have a young petty officer there jumping into the water to begin their underwater welding activities. And that was taken in Chuuk, which is in the Federated States of Micronesia. Bottom middle, you have Seabees there doing some community outreach in the Philippines. And bottom right, we have some Seabees doing some good old-fashioned iron work there. Okay, next slide, please. All right, third and final component is industry. Of the three, this is where we can have the most impact. So how do we industry is how we bridge the manning and capability gap to deliver infrastructure throughout the Pacific. The top left photo shows members of our Shipyard Infrastructure Optimization Program, or as we refer to as SIOP. SIOP is a comprehensive long-term recapitalization effort of the Navy's 4 public shipyards. We are currently constructing a dry dock, Virginia-class capable dry dock in Pearl Harbor, and we are moving towards the execution of a series of projects, a mega project, if you will, in Bremerton for a multi-mission dry dock there that will be Ford-class capable Ford carrier class capable carrier capable. On behalf of the SIOP program, NAVFAC has completed 32 facility projects totaling $897 million, with an additional 40 projects worth $6 billion under contract right now. The top right highlights one of our active projects under the SIOP program. P209, or the Dry Dock 5 project, is a $3 billion project to construct Virginia-class Block 5 capability, and it will functionally close the obsolete Dry Dock 3 in Pearl Harbor. Just for historic reference, Dry Dock 3 is where PACFLT pulled the Yorktown in, and in 48 hours they repaired it, put it back to sea, and it fought in Midway. Of course, she was sunk. But the key thing to know, just you think about a modern-day submarine won't fit in a dry dock that we use to repair a carrier, albeit a World War II carrier. So that's the significant increase in our hardware, if you will, in size and capability. P209 is currently the largest project in the Navy, but that will be overcome in the next few years with P454, which is in Bremerton, and that's the multi-mission dry dock. I will emphasize, though, that not every project is a multi-billion-dollar infrastructure investment. The bottom right photo shows, make sure, let's go to the next slide, please. Back up, we're a little out of whack there. I'll just keep talking. So we have the multi-billion-dollar investment. We have Seabees working on, we've had Seabees working in San Clemente Island with industry. Now, there are some legalities associated with that where we have to indemnify. We got to make sure our folks don't have legal exposure. But I look in the future, I've had this conversation in many forums with our contract partners that where we can compartmentalize the work, we should do so. And the other thing I'll mention at the SAME forum in Honolulu last fall, I asked all of our industry partners to think of these construction contracts as logistics contracts first, construction second. Nothing that we're going to build in these austere locations is terribly complicated, but the logistics is. And I'll cite one example. I've been visited at least 2 times by the economic development folks from the Northern Territory in Australia. They are interested in how do we break into your market. And I told them you need to start by meeting some U.S. companies, U.S. contractors, and talk to them about what you have to offer with respect to logistics. Do you know the hardware store in Papua New Guinea where you can buy the widgets? Because we probably don't. So we've had those conversations often. And then the standard construction that we do day to day, child development centers, barracks, all that continues in parallel to our expeditionary effort. Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, so with respect to industry, we have been active and will continue to be active. In 2023, we held a contractor summit here in San Diego. We received feedback from industry on myriad topics. These events also allow us as the government to communicate what our demand signal is currently and what is forecasted. Earlier this week, I briefed the Associated General Contractors of California, the San Diego chapter, on upcoming work in the Pacific, not only here in California, in San Diego, but across the AO, which spans all the way from Diego Garcia, just south of India, all the way to here in the West Coast. I'm absolutely grateful for the interest from industry, because ultimately what I want is competition. It helps my affordability, and so I encourage any of you that are interested to be curious, please. We've also invited industry to participate in our wartime acquisition response planning exercises. So what is this? So we've gone to our MAC, our Global Services, Contingency Services MAC, and we've invited those contract partners to participate in tabletop and command post exercises on potential scenarios where we would come to them, issue them task orders to support operations. It's simulated wartime scenario. We compensate our contract partners and request that they provide a deliverable. What I'm most interested in is their feedback on how we can improve the process. What type of language needs to be in our contracts? What types of things have we not thought about? I will give you a good example. We've done 3 of these in the past year. The last one was a classified exercise. We invited all of our partners to participate in that, but only one was able to participate because they didn't have people with security clearances. So Okay, so why is that? Because our contract language did not require it. So that's actually back to me to make that improvement moving forward to their contracts. In addition to the executive outbrief that our partners provided us, each contractor provided anywhere from a 20 to 30 page after action report where they highlighted their planning assumptions, their logistics capabilities, risks and challenges, specifically environmental and legal requirements, force protection, who has that responsibility? Key equipment and resource availability in phases 1 and 2 of operations, and loss of key support infrastructure. They provided us feedback on mitigation considerations, recommendations for future contract language, I should say. And I'll be the first to admit they're not always smooth. All 3 of the exercises have been challenging, but we're going to keep doing them because we're learning each time we execute one of these things. So we're going to continue to exercise these. My intent is to make them classified from this point moving forward, and we will do so. Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. So a little bit about Pacific Deterrence Initiative. So the investments under the Pacific Deterrence Initiative, which I'm sure most of you are familiar with, it's the overarching DoD program to strengthen deterrence against the PRC and the Indo-Pacific. NAVFAC supports PDI through forward-based facility solutions. These include MILCON, UMMC or minor MILCON, operations and maintenance funded construction projects, joint area development plans, environmental baseline surveys, infrastructure studies in various areas, including Australia, Commonwealth and Northern Marianas Islands, Federated States of Micronesia, Guam, Japan, Palau, Papua New Guinea, the Philippines, and Wake Island. In FY24, NAVFAC awarded 21 Army, Air Force, and United States Marine Corps posture projects in the Philippines and Australia alone. This fiscal year, NAVFAC will execute Navy posture projects in Australia, Micronesia, Japan, Palau, Papua New Guinea, and the Philippines. Navigating construction in remote areas can be challenging with country-specific restrictions, environmental requirements, real estate issues, and access issues. I would also add in agreements. The addition of the Joint Area Development Plans helps deconflict requirements, access issues, and ensures that DoD is speaking with one voice when approaching and working with our host nation. You can see the distribution there. I'll talk about Guam separately, but Guam, if I was to add an additional block in there, it would be right in the middle, and it would be Guam. And I would call that Ma War Recovery. Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. All right, regional operational support contracts execute all the upcoming work in the PAC-AO, including support for the Poseidon's Corollary. We have many contracting tools available to utilize. So I'm going to highlight just 2 of our many support contracts, one being the Naval Expeditionary Forces Regional Contract, we call it NEFRS, and the Philippine Operations Support Contract, or POSC. The NEFRS RSC, this contract, it's version 2. This contract provides support services to Seabees in the field. All expeditionary forces aligned under CTF, or Commander Task Force 75, which includes explosive ordnance disposal, Marine Expeditionary Security Forces, and then the Marine Corps' 8th and 9th Engineering Support Battalions throughout Southeast Asia, the Pacific, and Oceania. Support services include humanitarian assistance, civic assistance, construction projects, contingency efforts, supporting various exercises like Pacific Partnership, Bala-Katan, and CARET, and supporting other project objectives located throughout the Indo-PACOM area of operations. The Philippines Operational Support Contract, or POSC, provides multifunctional operations support services throughout the Philippines and other locations in Asia and Oceania. The contract vehicle can be used for security, facilities maintenance, transportation, supply, and logistics support and environmental services. As a SYSCOM, we have a host of other contracts but I highlight these two because I tell contractors they should think about, as I mentioned, this expeditionary construction effort is heavy from a logistics perspective. Often the construction is the easy part. Making the agreements to get this stuff there is the hardest. Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. So slide 13, Guam operations. So multiple activities in Guam taking place right now. So I'll start with the Guam Defense System on behalf of Missile Defense Agency and the Army. So in collaboration with MDA, Army, Air Force, and the FAA, the Guam Defense System aims to deploy and operate integrated systems to defend the entirety of Guam. NAVFAC is executing a number of MILCOM projects in support of both Army and Navy equities. At Polaris Point on Naval Base Guam, we are developing projects right now to support PACFLT submarine force deployment, footprint, and posture. This includes a new pier to berth multiple submarines simultaneously and includes a small boat dock and hotel barge. Hotel meaning berthing space for sailors that are off the submarine. The project hasn't been awarded yet, so I can't share a government estimate because it's not complete. But to give you an idea of the scope, we're talking starting in the hundreds of millions of dollars of execution just for Polaris Point alone. At Marine Corps Base Camp Blas, so Camp Blas is a brand new base in the northern end of the island. It'll play a central role in DoD's posture. Obviously, we continue our program at Camp Blas, and we will continue to do so for the next few years, but that set of projects, hundreds of millions of dollars executed thus far. Taiwan Ma War recovery, so that hit in 2023, if I remember correctly, May of 23. There's been ongoing repairs and contract actions over the last year. And so Ma War recovery, in our supplemental, we received funding to execute a number of projects in support of that. It's everything you can imagine, an infrastructure rebuild from utilities to vertical structures across the island. Okay, Indo-PACOM posture projects are included as well. There's many of those. I'm not going to get into all the details on those because it's more buildings. Okay, let's go to slide 14. This will be my final slide, and then we can open it up to questions, and I can provide some additional commentary. So, restoration of our critical infrastructure. I started the brief right here with the Project 33, target number 7. So programmatically, this is a tremendous investment in the Pacific when it comes to restoring our critical infrastructure. As I mentioned, I am being fully transparent with industry that I need your partnership and participation because I don't have enough uniformed construction troops to execute our mission. NAVFAC is a systems command. We're structured to meet our goals through our contract and technical authorities. We have multiple contract vehicles that we are working on now. I would encourage you to visit our website or our portal to look for those opportunities, including projected execution dates or when those contracts will be awarded. So I ask you to be curious about that. But we're excited. HARD is authorized, and we're excited for the challenge. This meaningful and important work in the defense of our nation is motivating, and I come to not only sailors, but to our industry partners. We're all Americans, and we all care about our country, and you're all patriots. So I want you to be curious. I want you to ask questions and do your research. And if there are business opportunities that make sense, then I would encourage you to pursue those. Thanks to everybody who listened to what I had to say, and let me open it up for any questions that you folks may have.
Sir, thank you. Master Sergeant Will McManus. I'm a student with Naval Postgraduate School. Served in the Marine Corps for over 20 years now. So specific to this initiative here, looking at the SIF operating concept, Stand-in Forces operating concept for the Marine Corps, and its subsidiary Expeditionary Advanced Basing Operations. Is there ongoing efforts to utilize allies as subcontracted entities to build expeditionary infrastructure at scale at lower cost to the government, and then also to incentivize cooperation with allies and partners?
Yeah. Hey, thanks, Master Sergeant. Great question. So yes. So I should have mentioned this in my brief. That's a great question you asked. So Seabee's industry, Poseidon's Corollary, we're already working with Marine engineers in Palau. So yes, go to the Joint Force, and we want to expand that effort. We've done test concepts with allies and partners in engineering, particularly with the Koreans and the Japanese, but it's not. There's a bunch of political considerations with deployment of that, but I'm always looking for those opportunities, particularly in those host nation countries where they're resident. So would we bring them in to do airfield damage repair in Okinawa? We would look for that.
Absolutely. I think there's great potential for the, as far as the industrial base of the allies as well in developing countries like the Philippines, to be able to do that at speed, and then also scale to supplement the 7K Seabees that we have.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks so much. Any other questions for me? Yes.
Good morning, Admiral. Jason Heber from Bechtel. Thank you for being here this morning. Just curious if you could comment a little bit about the outlook for budget and funding authorizations and appropriations for some of the infrastructure work. I mean, listening to the budget brief yesterday, a lot of talk about technology, platform systems, not a lot of talk about infrastructure. Just curious as to whether you see there being a risk of some of the infrastructure investments being crowded out, and anything industry can do to help make sure those investments are still made and that we get the infrastructure in place that we need to sustain and support our forces.
Yeah, thanks, Jason. That's a great question. So that's always a risk. I mean, the Navy goes to sea and fights from the sea, so priority of funding and investment is there. But I will tell you that with CNO coming out in Project 33, with that declaring infrastructure as a target is a game changer, because it sends a signal down into the Navy staff, over to the Secretariat, that we've identified that we need to make these investments. And so we're starting to see the results of that, particularly with the Ma War Supplemental. There's significant funding that has come with that. And so now I'm kind of in a place now where I have to assess, can I execute that? Do I have enough on the government side to be able to support that effort? And can industry execute it? And do we have the right, particularly in Guam, as all of you can imagine, we're not bringing labor from the United States. We're probably going to get them on H-2B visa to come here. So I am pleased with the focus on infrastructure. The reality is our infrastructure, there's not really enough funding to fix it to a place where it needs to be. But we're giving our best shot.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Jason.
Admiral Kilian, David Bluestein with ECC.
Hi, David.
A question related to host nation lobbying to you, like the Economic Development Council of Darwin. I think they've been pushing to remove the U.S. surety requirement.
Yeah.
Is that under consideration by PAC or Indo-PACOM?
So that's a good question, and the answer is no. So we haven't. There, of course, Australia in particular, specifically, they have different bonding requirements or surety requirements. But we have outlined for them how they can solve that problem.
Good.
So it's really not an active issue right now. 2 years ago, it was very active. So no one's approached me recently about that.
Okay. And nowhere else in the PDI?
No.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Following the FAR and the requirements in the FAR.
Okay. Well, one last thing. Since the appropriators are now talking about a big increase in 25 for the NDAA,
Yeah.
and if that transpires, do you feel that this administration is going to put the pedal to the metal to move faster than the normal MILCON process?
Well, I can't speak to what this set of folks is going to do, but I can tell you that internally we've challenged ourselves. This is some feedback I got from AGC earlier this week. Was a speed execution on the pre-award side is just not. It's just not good, and so I take that to heart. We've been working on several initiatives with this, including someone asked me if we're going to use AI in pre-award. And so the answer to that is yes. I don't have any specifics for you. It's in my best interest to be faster in pre-award.
Right.
So,
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, David. What else, folks?
Admiral Kilian Manjeev Vora with ECC.
Hello, Manjeev.
From your perspective, if you really want the best from your industry partners, you have to figure out how to be the owner or contracting agency of choice. Because there's a lot of construction going on everywhere, there's a lot of projects, so people have to pick and choose. And as you move forward in that, there's a couple of ideas. Like one is the speed of execution you talked about, of actually getting contracts awarded.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things from our limited perspective is that some of the government estimates may not be realistic, which requires them to then go above the threshold refunding.
Yeah.
And that takes a long time. And from a contractor's perspective, we can't hold our bids open for 365 days or longer. So what kind of initiatives are you considering for that?
Yeah, Manjeev, so that's a fantastic question. So, yes, our government estimates, if they're wrong, of course, we have to go back for reprogramming, and that just, now I've cycled you, right? And you can't, that's not sustainable. We are going through a series of reforms within the Systems Command on their cost estimating process, using confidence factors, cost schedule risk analysis, or and such. So that's a recognized shortcoming on our part. And not only is it hard for you, but it destroys our credibility with the Hill. And so we're working on that now. I mean, I believe you will start to see an improvement in that.
Is there any way that industry can help you with that for projects that are still yet to come out?
Well, I would ask you, Manjeev, what would you suggest? I mean, I'm always interested in the feedback.
If we have early look at your designs or pre-designed
ECI.
documents, we can provide rough orders of magnitude from our perspective without all the details.
Yeah.
And if you have that from several contractors, that might give you at least an idea what the market thinks things should cost.
Yeah. Yeah, so in the context of ECI, that is going to be a more common practice on our part. I mentioned with the group that I spoke with earlier this week, I'm interested in sharing risk with industry. And so to the extent that I can do that, given the way our laws and regulations are formatted, meaning, firm, fixed price, if you will, for MILCON, we're going to continue to look for those opportunities. And if through ECI I get feedback and we can ask for feedback on cost estimating, I'll do so.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Okay, what else, folks? Okay, hey, I want to thank everybody for listening to me for the past 45 minutes or so. It's been a pleasure. I know I presented all of you with just a lot of general information. I would say that if you're afraid not in a bad way, be curious, because curious is the antidote to fear with respect to this construction, these requirements. And I need folks to be asking us questions about where are there opportunities. I would encourage you, we put everything online. We're required to do that. It's on the internet. You can see what solicitations, what upcoming solicitations will be on the street. Take a look at those. Work through our staff. If I'll leave my card here, I will direct you to whoever you need to work with within my organization, but I just ask for your support. And we're trying anything and everything to think, act, and operate differently in the Pacific when it comes to construction, from the West Coast all the way to good old Diego Garcia. So thank you for your support. And I continue to look forward to continue working with all of you. So thank you very much. Thank you.